The first thing that hit me was not the sight, but the smell. A thick, acrid cloud of coal smoke and wood ash choked the air, stripping away the sterile scent of modern Tokyo. I blinked against the grit, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs as the neon glow of the city dissolved into the pale, dusty light of dawn. The rough hemp fabric of my tunic scratched against my skin, a tangible reminder that I was no longer in Tokyo. The ground beneath my feet was not smooth pavement, but uneven dirt and mud, churned by the hooves of horses and the sandals of hurried pilgrims. I reached out, expecting to touch a glass wall or a steel railing, but my hand met only cold, damp stone. The world had shifted, not in colour, but in weight and texture. Before I could even process the sheer impossibility of my situation, a hand clamped onto my shoulder. It was not a violent grip, but it was firm, commanding attention. I turned to face my captor, or perhaps my saviour. He wore armour that gleamed dully in the morning light, his eyes sharp and assessing. "You are under my protection," he said, his voice low and steady. "Do not wander. The streets are not safe for one who looks so lost." The title of guest felt like a fragile shield against the harsh reality of this new world. I nodded, my throat too dry to speak, and followed him into the chaos. We moved through a maze of narrow alleys, flanked by wooden buildings that leaned precariously over the dirt paths. The air was alive with sound, the clatter of carts, the shouts of merchants, and the distant clang of metal on metal. This was not the Osaka I knew. There were no skyscrapers piercing the sky, only the sweeping curves of tiled roofs. I saw samurai patrolling with disciplined grace, their swords hanging at their hips like extensions of their own bodies. Merchants haggled over goods displayed on simple mats, their faces etched with the fatigue of constant labour. The sheer scale of the human effort required to maintain this city was staggering. Every surface, every stone seemed alive with purpose. As we climbed higher, the city opened up into a vast expanse of green and brown, and then, it appeared, Osaka Castle. It was not merely a building, it was a statement of power carved from stone and wood. The massive walls rose hundreds of feet into the air, their curves designed to deflect artillery and inspire awe. Beneath this fortress loomed the humble homes of the townsfolk, a stark reminder of the hierarchy that governed life here. The castle was not just a residence, it was the heart of a military machine, pumping strength and authority into every vein of the domain. I felt small, insignificant, yet strangely anchored by the sheer magnitude of the structure before me. My guide explained the layout as we walked along the stone paths. The castle was built on a series of concentric baileys, each one higher and more fortified than the last. The walls were angled outward, forcing attackers into a kill zone where they could be struck from above. It was a masterpiece of defensive engineering. I traced the lines of the stonework with my eyes, noting how each block was carefully fitted together without mortar. The precision was terrifying in its beauty. This was not just architecture, it was a weapon designed to withstand siege after siege. The shadow of the castle falls long, and in its shadow, life both thrives and withers. Below the castle, the Jokomachi bustled with a different kind of energy. This was a city built for war, yet it thrived on peace. Merchants from across Japan brought goods to trade, and artisans crafted weapons and tools with meticulous care. The social hierarchy was rigid, but it was also fluid, allowing for mobility through skill and loyalty. I watched a group of monks walk past a group of samurai, their robes contrasting sharply with the gleaming armour. There was a tension here, a delicate balance between spiritual influence and military might. The air here tastes different, sharp with ambition and fear. Inside the castle, the atmosphere shifted again. The grand halls gave way to smaller, more intimate spaces. Here, the Lord hosted tea ceremonies, not just for pleasure, but for politics. The concept of wabi-sabi was evident in every detail, the imperfect cup, the rough wooden bowl, the quiet beauty found in simplicity. I saw the golden tea room, a structure so opulent it seemed to contradict the very philosophy it embodied. It was a statement of wealth and power, a way to overwhelm visitors with the Lord's generosity and strength. In this room, silence was louder than swords, and every gesture carried the weight of war. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the stone walls, I realized I was no longer fighting my displacement. I had accepted my place in this world, however temporary it might be. The beauty of the moment, the intricate details of the tea ceremony, and the grandeur of the castle all contributed to a sense of peace amidst the chaos. Every stone holds a memory, I thought, watching the light fade from the walls. This era was fleeting, but its impacts would endure. I did not know what the future held for Osaka, or for me. But in this moment, under the shadow of the castle, I found a strange comfort in the transience of it all. The rough hemp against my skin no longer feels like a foreign intrusion, but a tether to this strange new world. Before me rises the iron heart of Osaka, a fortress so vast it seems to swallow the horizon. The stone walls, stacked with impossible precision, rise hundreds of feet into the sky, defying gravity and logic alike. Every block is a mountain quarried from the earth, fitted without mortar yet standing firm against centuries of storms. This is not merely a home for a lord, it is a statement of absolute dominion carved in granite. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, once a peasant who clawed his way to supreme power, has turned this city into a stage for his eternal rule. He did not just build walls, he built a narrative of invincibility that echoes through the valleys below. While peasants toil in the fields, thousands of laborers haul stones to perfect this monument. The scale is terrifying, designed to crush the spirit of any enemy who dares approach its gates. I am led closer, feeling the ground tremble with the weight of such ambition. Moats cut deep into the earth, filled with water so dark it mirrors the sky like a polished shield. Arches span these barriers, narrow and defensible, allowing only those with explicit permission to cross. This is a city within a city, layered with concentric rings of defense. Each wall is higher than the last, creating a labyrinth of stone that traps invaders while protecting the inner sanctum. My earlier panic fades, replaced by a cold realization. I am inside a machine built for war, yet dressed in the robes of peace. Below the castle, the Jokamachi sprawls outward, a sprawling tapestry of wood and paper where life pulses with frantic energy. Samurai estates line the streets, their gates imposing and rigid, marking the boundaries of power. Merchants hawk their goods in crowded markets, unaware that every transaction is watched by the silent eyes of the regime above them. The hierarchy is etched into the very pavement. The smell of coal smoke still clings to my clothes, a reminder of the industry that fuels this feudal dream. Gold flows into this city like water through a canal, sourced from mines far to the west. The Seto inland sea trade routes are open, bringing silk and porcelain from distant lands. I see merchants unloading crates of lacquerware, their wealth visible in the fine silks they wear. This prosperity is not accidental. It is engineered by the Lord's control over every kiln and mine. The air grows thick with the scent of incense as we move toward the inner courts. Yet, amidst this militaristic display, a different power whispers from the shadows. Monks move quietly through the gardens, their robes blending with the moss and stone. They are not just spiritual guides, but political players, negotiating peace while swords are sharpened. The tea ceremony here is not merely art, it is diplomacy wrapped in ritual. A master prepares matcha with trembling hands, each movement a calculated gesture of respect that could save or doom a clan. I had thought beauty was perfection, but here, imperfection is the highest form of power. The cracked tea bowl holds more truth than the polished sword. This aesthetic, known as wabi-sabi, teaches us to find grace in transience. It is a philosophical shield against the brutality that surrounds it, allowing the mind to rest while the body prepares for violence. The shadow of the castle falls long, stretching across the garden paths like a warning. Silence is louder than swords here, echoing off the stone walls that have stood for centuries. I accept my place in this transient world, bound by the grace of a lord who sees everything. The peace is fragile, maintained by gold and fear alike. As I step away from the walls, I realize that every stone holds a memory of the battles yet to come. The sensory shock settles into awe as the white stone walls rise against the sky. This is not merely a residence, but a fortress of golden stone. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the peasant who became ruler, has turned this mountain into a machine of war. Every rampart serves a defensive purpose, every gate a strategic choke point. The sheer volume of cut stone required to build these walls defies logic for an era before modern machinery. How does one fund such oppressive grandeur? The answer lies in the shimmering waters of the Seto Inland Sea. These strategic trade routes flow with gold from local mines and tariffs from merchant guilds. While samurai practice violence, merchants navigate complex treaties to move wealth. The castle stands tall only because the sea feeds it. The shadow of the castle falls long over these waters, ensuring every coin passes under its gaze. The architectural grandeur is a lie. Beneath the plastered walls lies a labyrinth of traps and kill zones. The cost of this piece is measured in blood and labor. I see carts groaning under the weight of materials, pulled by men whose hands are raw from rope. We romanticize the aesthetic, ignoring that every stone holds a memory of suffering. The beauty is armor for the brutality within. Within this iron heart beats a political pulse fraught with danger. The Ikoiki monks, once allies, now watch from their temples with suspicious eyes. Their spiritual influence challenges Hideyoshi's military ambition. They preach salvation, he demands submission. The tension is palpable in the quiet streets. Silence is louder than swords here, as monks and soldiers pass each other without a word. Fade into the intimate, shadowed interior of a tea room, shifting from macro-military to micro-social. Here, war is waged with whisk and bowl. The art of chinoyu is political diplomacy. A cup of tea can secure an alliance or declare enmity. The host measures powder with precise movements, each gesture a calculated statement of power and humility. The air here tastes different, thick with incense and gold dust. This is the significance of the golden tea room. It is not just a place for drinking tea, but a symbol of absolute authority. The walls are covered in real gold leaf. We think of wabi-sabi as imperfection, but this room rejects it entirely. It is perfection bought with immense wealth. The sound of water boiling is the only music. Guests sit in silence, watching the steam rise from the iron kettle. Every item in the room is a treasure, but its value is secondary to the moment. The philosophy demands presence in a world of uncertainty. Time is not a line, but a circle, and in this room we are trapped in the eternal now. What lies within the golden tea room that could sway the fate of nations? Only the host knows. I accept my temporary place here, finding beauty in the transience. But I sense the storm gathering on the horizon. The inevitable historical changes approach, leaving a lingering sense of melancholic wonder as the gold fades to shadow. The cold stone of the keep gave way to the warmth of incense. I stepped from the glare of gold leaf into the dim, shadowed intimacy of a tea chamber. Here, the air tasted different, not with the metallic tang of fear, but with the earthy depth of aged matcha. Lord Hideyoshi did not just build walls, he curated reality. This golden room was his throne without a seat, a stage where power was performed through ritual rather than force. Every gesture measured allegiance, every silence weighed consequences. Within these walls, aesthetics served as a weapon of statecraft. Hideyoshi used the golden tea room to dazzle rivals and nobles alike, forcing them to acknowledge his authority through participation in his cultural spectacle. Yet, beneath the gold leaf lay a deeper philosophy, wabi-sabi, the aesthetic of imperfection. While the Lord flaunted excess, the monks sought beauty in the cracked and the worn. This tension between opulence and humility defined the era's soul. I watched the Ikoiki monks navigate this space. Formerly fierce warriors of the temple forts, they now moved with deliberate grace through the tea ceremony. Their presence was a reminder, even those who once resisted could be woven into the new order. Their conversion was not merely spiritual, but political. By participating in Hideyoshi's rituals, they signaled submission while preserving their community's integrity. It was a delicate dance of survival, where art became the currency of peace. The host's hands moved like water over stone. The whisking of the tea was a metronome for the room's tension. To accept the bowl was to accept the Lord's favor. To refuse was to invite ruin. I held my breath, feeling the weight of every glance. Silence is louder than swords here. In this golden cage, a misplaced word could unravel years of political maneuvering. The fragility of this piece rested on the precision of a single paw. This performance was funded by the wealth of the Seto Inland Sea. Trade routes brought not just goods, but influence. The gold on the walls mirrored the gold in the lord's coffers, both drawn from the labor and trade of countless hands. The ceremony ended, but the implications lingered. As I bowed to leave, I realized that culture here was not an escape from war, but its most sophisticated extension. Initially, I feared the castle's might as a blunt instrument of death. Now, I see it as a complex machine of diplomacy. The brutality remains, but it is masked by elegance, making it all the more potent. I find myself captivated by this duality. The beauty is real, even if its purpose is control. Time is not a line, but a circle, and I am momentarily caught in its golden ring. Yet, for every golden bowl, there is a steel blade waiting. The monk's submission is fragile, the merchant's loyalty conditional. This piece is a painted screen behind which armies march. As I stepped back into the courtyard, the smell of incense faded, replaced by the distant drum of war. The tea room was a dream. The castle was the reality. I accept this temporary place in this world. There is beauty in the transience, a sorrow in the inevitability of change. The shadow of the castle falls long, but for now, I drink the tea. Every stone holds a memory, every gold leaf a promise. I am a guest in Hideyoshi's dream, knowing full well that dreams eventually wake to the harsh light of history. The air here tastes different. It tastes of crushed granite and ambition. Before me, the castle rises not as a home, but as a weaponized mountain of stone. Hideyoshi did not build for comfort, he built for permanence. While tea masters seek the beauty in imperfection, here, every block is polished to blinding perfection. The foundation is a testament to absolute control, where even nature is forced into geometric submission. I step closer, feeling the heat radiating from the massive granite slabs that define this new order. This gold leaf covering the keep is not merely vanity, it is currency made visible. The wealth flows from the Seto Inland Sea trade routes, funneling through merchant guilds who understand that in this era, art is a form of political armor. The golden tea room was never just for drinking tea, it was a stage where allegiance was bought and sold. The stone walls are the receipt for that transaction, standing as silent witnesses to the economic power that sustains this illusion of peace. The scale is overwhelming, forcing me to look up, dizzy by the sheer weight of it all. The walls are not vertical, they curve inward, a deliberate engineering trick to deflect siege engines and confuse climbers. Every angle is calculated for death. To stand at the base is to feel insignificant, a flea on the back of a sleeping dragon. The shadow of the castle falls long, stretching across the town like a physical weight. It dictates where we walk, when we speak, and how we breathe. There is no escape from its gaze. I try to steady my breathing, matching the rhythm of the guards who patrol these impassable heights. One might assume such a fortress is purely martial. Yet, amidst the steel, I see the saffron robes of Iko-Iki monks. They are not merely spiritual guides, but political players, navigating a path between devotion and survival in this rigid hierarchy. Their presence reminds me that faith is another layer of defense. The Lord protects them, for their followers are numerous, even as their swords remain sheathed. It is a delicate balance, one misstep away from collapse. The monks pass by without looking at me, their eyes fixed on the inner courtyard where the real power resides. Beyond the gates, the Jokomachi functions like a machine. Samurai drill in precise formations while merchants haggle over prices set by the Lord's decree. Every interaction is monitored, every gesture a reflection of status. There is no chaos here, only controlled order. The silence is louder than swords because it implies an unseen eye watching from above. To err is to invite suspicion, and suspicion is a precursor to exile or death. I watch a merchant bow deeply to a low-ranking samurai, the interaction smooth and practiced. Every stone holds a memory of those who built it under threat. This golden age is fragile. If the aesthetic performance fails, if the gold dulls or the stones crack, the political stability collapses with it. The fear is not of invasion, but of internal rot. The monks and merchants navigate this new order where art is currency, knowing that the Lord's favour can vanish as quickly as morning mist on the moat. I feel the weight of that fragility pressing down on me, heavier than the stone above. Hideyoshi rose from nothing to command this mountain. His rise was not just military but symbolic. He used gold to buy legitimacy, turning a fortress into a symbol of divine right. The castle is his biography written in stone and leaf. I see the reflection of the sky in the moat distorted by the ripples of boat wakes. It is a beautiful lie, masking the brutal reality of how power is seized and maintained in this time of constant warfare. The sun begins to dip, casting long shadows that seem to reach for my feet. I must accept my place here, even if it is transient. The beauty of the moment is real, but so is the threat. Time is not a line, but a circle, and I am caught in its turning. The siege of Osaka may come, and with it, the end of this golden era. But for now, I am safe within the shadow of the castle, watching history unfold from behind walls that will one day crumble. I turn away from the war, ready to face the night and the uncertainties it brings. Leaving the cacophony of the gates, we move inward to hushed reverence. The air smells of incense and aged tatami. Here, the gold leaf adorning the walls is not mere decoration, it is a weapon. Toyotomi Hideyoshi rose through cultural patronage, turning diplomacy into high-stakes performance. The shadow of the castle falls long, but now it is cast by aesthetics rather than stone. Inside the golden tea room, every gesture is scrutinized. Hideyoshi used luxury to bind merchants to his regime. Wealth flowed from Seto inland sea trade routes, funding this impossible grandeur. A merchant's bow is not respect, it is a ledger entry. His silence confirms allegiance or invites ruin. The brutality of the battlefield is replaced by the terror of the tea bowl. Amidst the gold, there is wabi-sabi, the aesthetic of imperfection. It is a calculated counterpoint. Hideyoshi controlled taste itself, defining what was beautiful to control who held power. A cracked bowl, repaired with gold lacquer, becomes more valuable than pristine porcelain. The flaw proves the owner's unique access to the Lord's favour. It is not humility, it is exclusivity disguised as simplicity. The gold leaf comes from mines controlled by the state. Merchant guilds are forced to buy it at inflated prices, then sell back to the court. It is a closed loop of extraction. I watch a trader calculate profit while his hands tremble. He knows his wealth is merely borrowed from the Lord's whimsy. The elegance of the rim masks the starvation of those who mined the ore. Outside these walls, the Ikko-Ikki monks watch with scorn. They reject such materialism as spiritual decay. Their silence is louder than swords. They see through the gold to the rot beneath. To them, this ceremony is a betrayal of the Buddha's teachings. The air here tastes different when faith meets fortune. Samurai must master both the sword and the bowl. Bushido ethics demand this duality. A warrior who cannot appreciate beauty is deemed unworthy of command. Armor aesthetics mirror this balance, polished steel next to rough hemp. The samurai combat techniques are as precise as the tea whisk. Every move is a study in controlled violence. I realize my survival depends on navigating these subtle codes. Physical strength is useless here. One must read the silence between sips. A misplaced word can cost a life. A perfect bow can save it. The hierarchy is rigid, but the path is narrow. I am not a guest. I am a student of this deadly grace. This golden age is fragile. If the aesthetic performance fails, political stability collapses. The siege of Osaka looms like a storm cloud. Time is not a line, but a circle. Every stone holds a memory of future bloodshed. I accept this temporary place, finding beauty in the transience, knowing the gold will soon tarnish. Leaving the cold stone for the warm, incense-heavy air of the inner sanctum, I step into a world where gold is not merely wealth, but theology. Hideyoshi has constructed the golden tea room not as a retreat, but as a declaration. Every surface glitters with leaf so pure it seems to emit its own light, a deliberate assault on the senses designed to overwhelm and humble. Yet, in this gilded cage, I find the ghost of wabi-sabi. The tea master's hands move with a roughness that contradicts the luxury around him. He does not serve perfection, he serves presence. I realize now that silence is louder than swords here. The gold does not scream, it waits, demanding submission through beauty rather than blood. Look to the altar where a Christian crucifix hangs beside a Shinto mirror. It is not hypocrisy, it is strategy. Hideyoshi collects faiths like he collects gold. He understands that to rule Osaka, one must speak every language. The missionaries bring cannons and Bibles, the monks bring prayers and peasants, and he takes them all into his ledger. I had thought this was a place of war, but it is a marketplace of souls. Every prayer offered here is a transaction. Every ritual a bond forged to keep the fragile peace intact against the rising tide of dissent. The steam from the tea rises, blurring the line between the sacred and the profane, leaving me to wonder what price is being paid for this divine commerce. Outside these gilded walls, the Ikoiki monks chant in the shadows. They wear rough hemp and reject the very gold that adorns this room. They do not want power, they want purity. Where Hideyoshi builds with leaf, they build with faith, a fortress of spirit that no siege engine can breach. Their presence is a thorn in the Lord's side. They see his tea ceremonies as vanity, his gold as corruption. To them, this entire display is a sin against the Buddha's poverty. The shadow of the castle falls long, but it cannot touch their conviction. They are the stone beneath the gold, unyielding and ancient. My survival no longer depends on strength, but on my ability to read the subtle shifts in etiquette. A misplaced glance at a tea bowl can be interpreted as treason. I watch the daimyos bow lower than necessary, their eyes fixed on the steam rather than each other. Every gesture is a test, every silence a judgment. The golden tea room is a theatre where loyalty is performed, not spoken. Hideyoshi watches to see who flinches, who hesitates, who truly understands the weight of his generosity. I hold my breath, matching my movements to the rhythm of the room, knowing that one mistake could unravel the delicate web of alliances that keeps me alive. This gold did not grow on trees. It was mined, traded, and coerced from the Seto inland sea routes. The merchants who fund this luxury are as essential to Hideyoshi's power as his samurai. They sit in the corners, counting coins while sipping bitter tea, their ledgers balancing the cost of every leaf applied to these walls. Their wealth is the Lord's armor. Yet, they are also vulnerable. A single decree from Hideyoshi can strip them bare, turning their fortune into dust. They trade their gold for protection, knowing full well the price of proximity to power. Every stone holds a memory, and every coin bears the weight of fear. The beauty here is bought with terror, paid for in silence. I see now that this grandeur is a shield, not just a symbol. Hideyoshi knows his power is fragile, so he wraps it in gold to make it seem invincible. The tea room is a stage for his legitimacy, but the cracks are showing. The monks do not care for his gold, and the samurai grow restless in their gilded cages. If the performance fails, if the illusion of harmony shatters, the kingdom may collapse under its own weight. He is building a palace on ice, hoping it will not melt before his enemies do. The tea grows cold in my cup, a small sign that even time refuses to wait for the Lord's grand design. In the courtyard below, the monk delegation waits, their faces stern and unyielding. They do not seek audience, they demand justice. While we sip tea above, they stand in the cold, representing a people who have forgotten how to kneel. Their anger is a quiet fire, burning beneath the surface of this golden peace. Hideyoshi tolerates them because he must, but his eyes burn with a promise of retribution. He sees their faith as a challenge to his divine right to rule. Time is not a line, but a circle. The gold will tarnish, the tea will fade, and only the truth of their resistance remains. I am no longer a stranger here. I have learned to read the silence, to taste the gold, and to fear the monks. This world is beautiful and terrible, a fleeting dream wrapped in silk and steel. I accept my place within it, if only for a moment. The sun sets over the castle, turning the gold to fire. For now, the peace holds. But I know what comes next. As the light fades, I feel the weight of history pressing down, a gentle hand guiding me toward the storm that will soon consume us all. The air here tastes different. It is thick with coal smoke and the metallic tang of fresh stone, a sensory shock that anchors me in this impossible reality. I follow my host up the steep, winding paths carved into the mountain, each step a reminder of the sheer will required to raise such a fortress from nothing. To my left, the Ishigaki rises like a cliff face of interlocking granite blocks, fitted together without mortar, yet defying gravity. These are not merely walls, they are statements of permanent power, designed to intimidate any who approach from the sea or the land below. As we crest the ridge, the city sprawls out beneath us, a chaotic tapestry of ambition and survival. This domain belongs to Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a man who rose from the dust of peasant fields to command the empire. He did not inherit this power. He forged it through relentless strategy and an uncanny ability to marshal wealth where others saw only barren land. His rise is the story of this age, a commoner becoming a god, king through sheer force of will. Yet, despite his humble origins, Hideyoshi understood that true authority requires spectacle. He built this castle not just for defense, but as a stage for his own deification. Every golden tile and polished stone is a brushstroke in his portrait of eternal rule, painted over the rough hemp reality of the people who laid them. The shadow of the castle falls long, covering everyone in its wake, whether they wish to stand in it or flee from it. Below us lies the Jokamachi, the castle town, a meticulously planned engine of war and commerce. Samurai residences cluster near the inner sanctums, their dark roofs marking the seat of military authority. Further out, the merchant districts sprawl in organized chaos, where gold flows from the mines of Sado and Kyushu through the Seto inland sea routes. I watch a group of merchants haggle over bolts of silk, their voices sharp with the urgency of survival. They are the lifeblood of this place, funding Hideyoshi's wars through taxes and trade. Without their gold, the golden tea room would be merely wood and paper. With it, they hold a fragile kind of power. But in this hierarchy, wealth is always subordinate to the sword, a precarious balance that defines daily life here. In the quiet corners of this town, however, another philosophy survives. It is called wabi-sabi, the aesthetic of imperfection and transience. While Hideyoshi dazzles with gold leaf and polished lacquer, the monks and artists seek beauty in the cracked bowl and the weathered branch. They find truth in decay, not impermanence. This is a subtle rebellion against the Lord's obsession with control. Where Hideyoshi demands order, wabi-sabi embraces chaos. It is a reminder that even his greatest achievements will eventually crumble, just as the stone walls beneath my feet are slowly worn by time. Every stone holds a memory of those who came before, whispering of a time when simplicity was strength. My host leads me toward the Karamon Gate, where the air grows heavy with incense. Daimyos must kneel to drink from Hideyoshi's utensils, acknowledging his superiority with every sip. The tea room is a trap of elegance, where hospitality masks political submission. The significance of this room lies not in its beauty, but in its ability to bind rivals through shared ritual and overwhelming awe. Yet, beneath the gold and silk, a darker current flows. The Ikoiki monks, once powerful allies, now lurk in the shadows of this new order. They rejected Hideyoshi's rise with fierce devotion, burning temples and defying his armies before their eventual defeat. Their spirit remains, a ghostly presence haunting the edges of the castle town. I see them occasionally, cloaked figures moving through the market squares with silent judgment. They do not speak of tea or gold, they speak of purity and sacrifice. To Hideyoshi, they are heretics. To others, they are the conscience he cannot silence. Their hostility creates a tension that vibrates through the streets, a silent war waged against the Lord's grand design. I realize now that my survival depends on navigating these subtle codes. I am neither samurai nor merchant, but a guest in a house of wolves. My role is to observe, to learn the language of gestures and silences that govern this world. To speak too loudly is to invite danger. To remain silent is to risk irrelevance. Silence is louder than swords here, carrying the weight of unspoken threats and hidden alliances. Every glance is a calculation, every step measured against the precariousness of my position in this golden cage. The cost of this peace is high, paid in blood and fear, but it is the only peace available in an age of endless conflict. As I stand on the precipice of this mountain fortress, I see not just a castle, but a fragile dream of unity. Hideyoshi has built a paradise of gold and stone, but it rests on foundations of sand and blood. The monks watch, the merchants calculate, and the samurai sharpen their blades. Time is not a line, but a circle, and this golden age is already beginning to fade. The siege that will eventually consume Osaka is merely a question of when, not if. I accept my place in this fleeting moment, watching the shadow lengthen as the sun sets over the capital. The roar of hammers and the shouting of labourers fade, replaced by the scent of burning incense and the soft shuffle of silk on tatami. I am no longer a spectator to construction, but a guest in the theatre of power. Toyotomi Hideyoshi understood that stone walls deter armies, but taste binds allies. Here, within these paper screens, the true architecture of his dominion is drawn not in fortifications, but in the precise geometry of ceremony. I expect gold leaf and lacquer, the trappings of absolute authority. Instead, I find rough, asymmetrical bowls and bamboo ladles worn smooth by use. This is not poverty, it is a calculated rejection of excess. The host places a cracked tea bowl before me, its fissures filled with gold. He calls this wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection. It is a philosophical weapon, signaling that true power needs no perfection to command respect. Beyond this humble chamber lies the Rogin no Matsuri, the golden tea room. Entirely covered in gold leaf, it serves as a counterpoint to the rustic ceremony. It is a display of wealth so absolute it becomes intimidating. The shadow of the castle falls long over these rituals. By controlling both the rustic and the opulent, Hideyoshi demonstrates he owns the entire spectrum of Japanese aesthetics, leaving no room for independent cultural authority. Silence is louder than swords in this room. A misplaced glance or a hesitant hand can be interpreted as defiance. The tea bowl becomes a conduit for loyalty, passed from lord to vassal like a sacred treaty. Outside, samurai sharpen blades for war. Inside, they polish bowls with religious devotion. The violence is sublimated into discipline, turning potential enemies into participants in a shared, silent performance of allegiance. The ink for the scrolls, the silk for the robes, the very tea leaves themselves, all flow from the Seto Inland Sea. The merchants who control these waters hold the purse strings that fund this delicate art. I watch a merchant bow deeply, his wealth measured not in gold coins, but in his ability to procure the rarest utensils for the Lord's pleasure. His survival depends on this aesthetic subservience. Yet, not all find peace in this gilded cage. The Ikoiki monks watch from the periphery, their simple robes a stark contrast to our silk. They see the tea ceremony as a distraction, a seductive lie masking the rot of ambition. Every stone holds a memory of their resistance. To them, Hideyoshi's elegance is a veneer over brutality, and they wait for the moment when the gold peels away to reveal the blood beneath. I realize now that my safety lies not in hiding, but in participation. To survive here, I must learn to read the steam rising from the bowl, to interpret the silence between sips. The air here tastes different, sharp with incense and anxiety. I accept this temporary place in the circle of power, finding a strange beauty in the transience of the moment, knowing it is fragile. Time is not a line, but a circle. The beauty we curate today will be dust tomorrow. The war drums begin to beat faintly through the walls, a reminder that this piece is borrowed. I drink the last of the matcha, bitter and green. In this silence I hear the future, the siege, the fall, the erasure of this golden age. Yet for now, I remain in the shadow of the castle, watching the tea cool. The chaos of the castle town fades as I step across the threshold. The air grows still, heavy with the scent of sandalwood and aged tatami. Here, the roar of steel is replaced by the soft hiss of boiling water. This is not merely a room, it is a stage for political theatre. Hideyoshi has constructed this space to demonstrate his absolute control over both nature and culture, turning diplomacy into a high-stakes performance where every gesture is scrutinized. The silence here is louder than any sword. The walls are sheathed in gold leaf, so bright they seem to burn the eyes. This is the Rojin no Matsuri, a deliberate excess that screams wealth from every surface. It seems contradictory to embrace wabi-sabi, the aesthetic of imperfection, while displaying such ostentatious luxury. Yet, the paradox is the point. Only one with absolute power can afford to mimic rustic simplicity. The gold does not hide the power, it defines it, turning cultural authority into a tangible, blinding reality for every guest. In this room, power is displayed through the deliberate embrace of imperfection. A cracked bowl or a humble whisk can signal deeper loyalty than any oath. Outside, armies march; inside, silence dictates allegiance. Every movement in the ceremony is a calculated risk, where the host holds the fate of his guests in the steam rising from the tea bowl. To fail to appreciate the flaw is to reject the Lord's wisdom. To praise it too loudly is to reveal desperation. The shadow of the castle falls long over this delicate ritual. We are surrounded by men who have just sheathed their swords to sip tea. The fragility of this piece is palpable. The gold leaf peels slightly at the edges, a hint that the foundation is not stone, but ambition. This beauty is a weapon, masking the brutal reality of feudal consolidation. One misstep in etiquette could shatter the illusion, revealing the violence beneath the gilded surface. The whisk moves in a rapid zigzag, creating foam as white as snow. The sound is rhythmic, almost hypnotic, yet my eyes remain fixed on the host's hands. These hands have held swords, now they hold bamboo. The transformation is total, yet the tension remains in the grip. Every motion is a test of endurance and grace under pressure. To drink is to accept the terms of this unseen contract, binding us together in a moment of suspended animation. Beyond these walls, the Ikowiki monks watch with disdain. They see no enlightenment in gold leaf, only corruption. Their spiritual defiance challenges Hideyoshi's narrative of peace through wealth. While we sip tea, they prepare for war, seeing the golden tea room as a temple to greed rather than wisdom. This tension simmers beneath the surface, a quiet rebellion against the opulence that defines this era's fragile stability. I am no longer a visitor but a participant in this dangerous dance. My survival depends on understanding that beauty here is not decoration but a shield. I realize now that the true power lies not in the gold, but in the control of perception. Time is not a line, but a circle. The gold will fade, the walls will crumble, but the ritual remains, binding past and future in a single, breathless moment of shared silence. Stepping out, the warm glow of gold gives way to the cool grey stone. The silence is broken by the distant drum of war. The tea room was a dream, but the fortress is real. I accept my place in this world, finding beauty in its transience, even as the shadow of siege gathers on the horizon. Every stone holds a memory of what is lost, and every shadow hints at what is yet to come. The golden tea room was not merely a place for drinking matcha, it was a theatre of statecraft where gold leaf served as the ultimate currency. Hideyoshi understood that while swords could conquer land, only beauty could bind loyalty. Every gesture within those walls was calculated to demonstrate his supremacy over both the warrior class and the merchant guilds. Outside, the city bristled with defensive fortifications designed to repel invasion. Inside, the air was thick with incense and silence. This duality defined Hideyoshi's rule, a brutal military machine wrapped in the delicate silk of aesthetic refinement. Yet, amidst this gilded excess, Hideyoshi championed a conflicting philosophy, wabi-sabi. He invited the tea master Sen no Rikyu to design spaces that celebrated rough clay and asymmetry. This was not an accident of taste, but a strategic embrace of imperfection. By valuing the humble over the opulent, he positioned himself as the arbiter of all beauty. The contrast between the gleaming golden walls and the rustic tea utensils was deliberate. It forced guests to confront the tension between their wealth and their spiritual humility, a psychological maneuver that kept even the most powerful daimyo dependent on his approval. Stepping out of the tea room, the scale of Hideyoshi's ambition became overwhelming. The castle itself was a monument to his rise from peasant to ruler, constructed with massive stone walls that seemed to defy gravity and time. We often imagine castles as static fortresses, but Osaka was alive. Its curved walls were engineered to deflect cannon fire, while its inner courtyard served as barracks for thousands of samurai. The architecture was not just defensive, it was a declaration that Hideyoshi had permanently altered the landscape of power. The gold leaf covering the interior doors and roofs came from mines controlled by merchant guilds tied to the Seto Inland Sea. This trade network funded the castle's impossible scale. Hideyoshi used economic leverage as effectively as he used military force, binding the wealth of the realm to his personal legacy. Just as the tea room manipulated taste, the castle manipulated resources. Every stone was laid with political intent, ensuring that the physical structure mirrored the hierarchy he imposed on society. Beneath the gilded surface lay a deep spiritual conflict. The Ikoiki monks who had once resisted Hideyoshi's rise now watched from the shadows. Their rejection of material wealth stood in stark opposition to his golden excess. This tension was not merely religious, it was a political fault line that threatened to crack the foundation of his rule. The monks' silent judgment lingered in every courtyard, a reminder that spiritual authority could not be bought with gold alone. Life within the castle town was a rigid performance. Samurai moved with practiced precision, their armor clinking softly as they patrolled the stone paths. Merchants negotiated in hushed tones, aware that a single misstep could cost them their livelihood. The air smelled of lacquer, wet stone, and coal smoke. Even the layout of the streets reinforced this order. Narrow alleys funneled movement toward the keep, ensuring that no one could approach the lord without passing through layers of surveillance. The city was a machine designed to process loyalty. The elegance of this golden age was a fragile veneer. While Hideyoshi projected stability, whispers of war echoed from the borders. The shadow of the castle fell long, not just over the city, but over the future itself. Every moment of peace was purchased with the promise of future violence. Time is not a line, but a circle. The beauty we see now is merely the calm before the storm that will eventually sweep this golden dream away. I found myself accepting this temporary existence. The sensory shock of arrival gave way to a strange comfort in the present moment. There was beauty in the impermanence of it all, a poignant reminder that even gold leaf peels and stone crumbles. As I stood before the massive gates, I realized that my survival depended not on returning to my own time, but on navigating this fleeting, brilliant world with open eyes. The air here tastes different. The smoke of industry is replaced by the heavy, sweet scent of sandalwood and incense. I am led away from the clamour of the castle town into a silence so profound it feels like pressure against my eardrums. This is not merely a room, it is a stage for Hideyoshi's most dangerous performance. The walls are not stone, but wood covered in layers of gold leaf so thick they seem to breathe with their own inner light. It is an absurdity. A peasant who rose from nothing now demands that divinity be bought and sold. Yet, in the centre of this gilded excess sits a bowl. It is rough, dark and cracked. The concept of wabi-sabi, the aesthetic of imperfection, is not just art here, it is a political tool. By embracing brokenness in the tea bowl, Hideyoshi claims he can mend the fractured nation. The gold project's wealth, the cracked clay project's humility. Both are lies designed to bind the daimyo to his will. Every stone holds a memory, but here, every gesture holds a threat. To reject the tea is to reject the Lord's mercy. This gold did not appear by magic. It flows from the silver mines of Iwami and the bustling ports of Sakai. The Seto-Inen sea trade routes are the arteries of this empire, pumping wealth directly into Hideyoshi's coffers. Merchants who once held power now kneel, their ledgers rewritten to serve the warlord. They trade in silk and porcelain, but the true currency is loyalty. The tea room is where these contracts are sealed, not with ink, but with silence. The economy of Osaka is built on this delicate balance of commerce and coercion, where gold leaf masks the brutal reality of feudal consolidation. But look closer. Behind the tea masters stand the Iko-Iki monks. Their robes are simple, their eyes hard. They reject this gilded idolatry. To them, Hideyoshi's gold is a sin. He uses their fear to control the populace while simultaneously mocking their spiritual purity with his excess. The tension is palpable, a wire pulled tight enough to snap. Silence is louder than swords. In this room, the monk's quiet disdain is more dangerous than any army marching at the gates. The tea master's movements are precise, almost ritualistic. Each whisk of the bamboo spoon is a calculation. This is Chinoyu's diplomacy, where every sip can cement an alliance or declare war. I watch a rival daimyo accept the bowl. His hand trembles slightly. He knows that refusing this tea would be an act of treason. The beauty of the moment is a cage, gilded and inescapable. It is not just elegance, it is domination. The aesthetic is the weapon, and we are all its prisoners. A sudden gust of wind rattles the paper screens. For a moment, the illusion of peace shatters. Beyond these walls, the Western daimyo are gathering. The siege of Osaka is not yet here, but its shadow lengthens every day. This golden age is a fragile veneer over a kingdom under siege. The shadow of the castle falls long. We drink tea while the world holds its breath, waiting for the first stone to fly. I realize I am not merely an observer of culture. I am a spectator to the end of an era. Hideyoshi's rise was built on ambition, and his fall will be written in blood. The gold leaf will peel. The tea will cool. The warriors will remember only honor, not hospitality. My survival depends on accepting this transience, finding beauty in the fleeting moment before the storm breaks. Time is not a line, but a circle. We are trapped in its final, beautiful rotation. I accept my place here, not as a conqueror, but as a witness. The elegance of the tea room is real, even if its foundation is rotten. The crack in the bowl remains. It reminds me that perfection is impossible, and peace is temporary. I hold the cup, feeling the weight of history in my hands. Every stone holds a memory. This one remembers the gold, but also the blood that bought it. And so, I drink, knowing that tomorrow, the world will change forever. Inside the private chamber, the air grows heavy with incense and silence. Hideyoshi's golden tea room is not merely a space for drinking tea. It is a theatre of power where gold leaf masks the rough edges of his peasant origins. Yet, in the corner, a single cracked bowl sits on a tatami mat, its imperfections celebrated over flawless porcelain. The Lord invites me to touch the rim of this broken vessel. He explains that true beauty lies in the wabi-sabi aesthetic, finding grace in decay and asymmetry. This is his political maneuver. By embracing imperfection, he subtly critiques the rigid aristocracy while positioning himself as the sole arbiter of taste. The air here tastes different when power is curated rather than forced. It smells of gold dust and calculated humility. Outside these paper screens, the world is steel and stone. The castle walls gleam with gold, a testament to wealth extracted from mines and trade routes. Inside, however, the philosophy is one of minimalism. Hideyoshi uses wabi-sabi to disarm his enemies, making them lower their guard against his cultural sophistication while his armies prepare for war. The steam from the tea rises, blurring the line between the spiritual realm and the political one. I watch the Lord's hands, steady and deliberate, realizing that every gesture is a threat wrapped in elegance. I had thought beauty was decoration, but here it is a weapon. The elegance of the tea room serves to mask the brutal reality of feudal consolidation, where every gesture is calculated for power. The gold on these walls did not appear by magic. It flows from the Seto inland sea, where merchant ships bring wealth from across the archipelago. Hideyoshi controls these trade routes, turning commerce into a lever of political dominance. The tea room is funded by the blood and labor of those who sail these waters. A merchant kneels before me, offering a gift of silk woven from threads bought with gold. He whispers that loyalty to Hideyoshi means prosperity, but dissent brings ruin. The economic power is absolute, binding the guilds to the warlord's will through fear and favor. The silk feels cool against my palm, a tangible link between the spiritual austerity of the tea ceremony and the material greed of the court. Not all submit to this golden order. The Iko-Iki monks who once held vast power now watch from the shadows with suspicion. They reject the materialism of the tea room, seeing it as a corrupting influence. Their spiritual defiance is a quiet threat to Hideyoshi's legitimacy, a reminder that faith cannot be bought with gold leaf. Silence is louder than swords when the monks gather in the temple grounds. Their prayers are counterweight to the Lord's drums. Hideyoshi knows this. He uses the tea ceremony to co-opt the monks' aesthetic, stealing their spiritual authority and repackaging it for political gain. I am a spectator to this delicate dance. The narrator's realization that they are a spectator to history, not just an observer of culture, settles heavily. Every smile at the tea ceremony hides a dagger. Every bow conceals a threat. The beauty here is fleeting, a veneer over the impending storm. I had believed I was merely watching art unfold. Now I see it is politics in motion. The golden chalice is filled with wine, but the shadow of war hangs heavy over every sip. The tea grows cold as the sun sets, casting long shadows that mimic the falling empires of the past. The merchant's ledger is open on a low table, its pages filled with numbers that represent lives and lands. Hideyoshi's control over the Seto inland sea trade routes allows him to fund his armies and build his castle. Wealth is the true currency of power here, more reliable than swords. Yet, this wealth is fragile. A single rebellion in the provinces could cut off the flow of gold. The Lord's reliance on commerce makes him vulnerable to the very forces he seeks to dominate. Every stone holds a memory of the labor that built it, and every coin bears the weight of the hands that earned it. I accept my place in this transient world. The beauty of the tea room is real, but so is the threat of the siege that looms on the horizon. Hideyoshi's golden age is a candle flame in the wind. It may burn brightly for now, but the darkness will eventually return. As I step back into the courtyard, the harsh sunlight feels like an interrogation. The silence of the tea room is replaced by the distant rumble of drums, signaling the end of this fragile peace. Time is not a line, but a circle. The gold will tarnish, the stone will crack, and the memory of this moment will fade into legend. The incense here does not merely scent the air, it suspends time, creating a sanctuary where the weight of gold feels lighter than breath. Inside this small room, Toyotomi Hideyoshi constructs his true power. He surrounds himself with gold leaf to dazzle the court, yet demands the tea utensils be rough, unglazed clay. This is wabi-sabi, the aesthetic of imperfection. He forces his generals to bow before cracked pottery. It is a deliberate psychological trap. By elevating the flawed over the perfect, he asserts that his taste defines reality. The gold proves his wealth, the rough bowl proves his authority. This silence is louder than swords. It demands absolute stillness from men who live for violence. Yet, this delicate ritual is funded by the blood of commerce along the Seto inland sea. The gold on these walls comes from mines I have never seen, moved by merchant guilds who understand that art is currency. They trade in porcelain and lacquer, binding their loyalty to Hideyoshi through shared aesthetic devotion. Beauty here is a strategic weapon. Every gesture in this ceremony is a calculation. To hold the bowl correctly is to swear allegiance. To fail is to risk exile. The tea room is not a place of rest, but a battlefield where diplomacy is won through the precise geometry of silence. I recall the monks who watch from the temple shadows. They reject this gilded vanity. To them, gold is a distraction from enlightenment. They see the golden tea room as heresy. Hideyoshi knows this. He invites these same monks to witness his wealth, not to convert them, but to humiliate their ideology with sheer opulence. It is a spiritual siege. The air tastes different here, thick with the scent of roasted leaves and underlying dread. I am caught between the tea master's gentle whisking and the monk's silent judgment. Survival requires navigating this chasm without falling into either abyss. The steam rises from the iron kettle, a ghost in the dim light. The host moves with robotic precision, every fold of the silk bag measured. This is theatre for the elite. My own hands tremble, not from fear of death, but from the pressure to perform. Hideyoshi watches my grip on the bowl. He tests my composure. If I spill a drop, I dishonor him. If I drink too quickly, I show greed. The tea must be consumed in a single breath, a metaphor for accepting his rule without hesitation. I realize then that my past life is irrelevant. Here, value is determined by presence. I lower my gaze, focusing on the crack in the ceramic glaze. It is beautiful because it is broken. It reminds me that I, too, am fragile in this golden cage. Outside this room, the city is a fortress. Every stone holds a memory of siege. But here, within these tatami mats, we pretend the world is at peace. The contrast is nauseating. The shadow of the castle falls long over this moment. Hideyoshi's ambition is boundless, fueled by dreams of conquering Korea and unifying Japan under his sole banner. This peace is a suspension, not a resolution. The drums are already beating in the distance. Time is not a line, but a circle. We drink tea, we bow, we fight, we repeat. The beauty of this moment is precious, precisely because it is doomed. I feel a melancholic wonder at the intensity of the present, knowing it will soon be ash. I accept my place here, not as a conqueror, but as a witness. Hideyoshi's gold will fade, and his castles will crumble, but the art remains. I find solace in the ephemeral nature of this encounter. It is enough to have seen it. The tea leaves settle at the bottom of the bowl. The liquid is gone. Only the scent remains. This is the lesson of wabi-sabi. Beauty exists in its disappearance. I drink the last drop, acknowledging the transience of my own presence in this era. I am no longer afraid of the displacement. I have found a strange home in the silence between the notes. The warlord's power is real, but so is the art he commissions. Both are fleeting, and that makes them magnificent. The ceremony ends. The screens slide open, revealing the harsh daylight of the courtyard. The incense fades, replaced by the smell of dust and horse sweat. I step out into the world I know is ending. The siege of Osaka looms on the horizon, a storm that will wash away this golden age. Yet for now, the beauty remains. It hangs in the air like smoke. How long can such beauty withstand the coming storm? I do not know. But I carry the image of that rough bowl with me. It is a talisman against the future. A reminder that even in darkness there is light, and in gold there is clay.